Hello and welcome to a walkthrough of my message map. The map is there to provide an overview of what you can expect from mindset transformation work with me. It consists of 4 main outcomes that I've picked out amongst others and their associated actions to achieve them. Where possible, I've given examples to bring this map to life beyond just making generalized statements. I'll also brief you on the feelings and emotions you'll feel from the outcomes, as well as highlight the emotions that you're currently feeling, some of which you may not be aware of or may continue to feel in the absence of the work. Without further ado, let's begin with the central big promise, which is to create your path to your inner peace. Each of our paths is different. It doesn't matter where you start from or where you want to go. It can be the path to something relatively intangible, like you want to worry less or have less anxiety, to bigger sounding tangible goals, like I want to be a millionaire or I want to have a change in my career. The point here is that whatever it is, we achieve it as a byproduct of the work, not having it as the be-all and end-all that we hang everything on. This also caters for you changing your mind along the way. You see, we're all prone to changing our minds, which we think is rubbish, when in fact, it's completely fine. The flexibility built into the work lets us get our self-worth to a point where a change of mind doesn't faze us. So, if we want to be a millionaire one day, and the next we want to find our ideal partner instead, that's okay. And if we start off with a goal of, let's say you want to lose weight, and by the end of the work, you still want to have the goal of losing weight, that's also okay. If you want to break the cycle of hopping from goal to goal, symptom to symptom, shiny object to shiny object, this is what building your path to your inner peace is all about. So, in terms of the outcomes, what are they? Well, firstly, the thing with these outcomes is that they're individual, sequential, and interconnected. Individual, because at any point in time, even after we stop working together, you can hone in on any one of these outcomes on their own and address it specifically. It's sequential and interconnected because all the outcomes follow each other in a natural pattern and order. So doing each one on its own is fine, but the work will make more sense if it's done in order. So we begin with the first outcome in the top left quadrant of the map, which is to have less arguments and ego battles with people. So an ego battle here is 2 or more people with strong opinions that debate heavily on a topic, each one escalating in tone, volume and speed to press their point home. I've started with a straightforward, no-nonsense outcome because this is something we probably all actively engage in our daily lives, whether it's with our partners, our family, friends, colleagues, whomever. We sometimes end up in an argument or ego battle when we didn't even set out to be in one in the first place. So we then end up feeling emotions like stress because we want to look clever and wise, fear and shame from looking stupid, and nerves from wanting to say the right thing. Now, all these emotions are natural to feel and are okay, but they're ones that bring about situations and states that we don't want to be in, like being constantly on edge, snappy and reactionary, or indeed something more destructive, like experiencing a breakdown of a personal or work relationship. So, what do we do to argue less? Well, the situation of getting into arguments in ego battles and then feeling shit has first come about from each time we engage with them. We're putting our self-worth and thus our inner peace to ransom because we want to prove ourselves right, even though there's no tangible reward other than our ego being stroked. All this has come as a result of programming we've received and picked up since our birth, where we carry out certain behaviors as we've got the understanding that displaying and having certain emotions isn't good enough. The new programming from the work with me gives us new ideas and techniques and vantage points to change the situations we feel for the better. So in this example, we employ techniques of an opinion, not my opinion, and the phrase, maybe you're right. Now what they serve to do is to tell ourselves that others may be right, which immediately takes the pressure off us of having to be right all the time. And we remind ourselves that we can learn and evolve our understanding and not try to prove a point and ourselves and end up feeling valid but having unpleasant feelings. Now, what does this give us feelings-wise? Well, you'll feel the palpable relief of arguing less. You'll feel more assured in yourself, and also take away the pressure of not having to judge anyone else. You'll get curiosity from what you can learn and also experience the sheer enjoyment of just not arguing. And who wouldn't want that? So from here, we move on to the second outcome on the top right of the map, which is to realize new, healthier ways to meet your human and practical needs. Now, this operates on the idea that our subconscious has the twin objectives of meeting our needs and our survival in any scenario we face. It doesn't care for our happiness or satisfaction, just those two objectives. So this helps explain why we remain stuck in situations like a job we don't like or a relationship that we're not happy in, because even though we might not like these situations, because we're meeting our needs in it, our subconscious sees no need for change. So we stick to these situations by giving ourselves reasons like, it'll get better soon, or they'll change eventually. Now, why does our subconscious operate in this way? Well, if we think of our subconscious as a team on a control deck, like on, say, Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever example resonates with you, then we see that from our very beginning, when we encounter a situation we've not seen before, our team on the control deck creates a character to deal with what's going on. So for example, scenarios like your first day at school, first time meeting family, first time at a party. Accordingly, we build up a cast of characters that automatically take charge each time, sometimes without us knowing. And if there's not a relevant character in our cast according to our subconscious, it will make a new one for us. So you know those times when we say, I'm a different person in work than out of work, or I wasn't myself then? This is what we mean when we say it's a character from our cast that has taken charge of the situation. Now, what does this have to do with our needs? Well, each character, even the ones we don't like, fulfill needs for us. So we therefore take the action of creating your mindset map via my core process, construct, deconstruct, reconstruct, to help build an understanding of who you are. Now, you may be wondering at this point, how does construct, deconstruct, reconstruct work? So to answer this, I've created a video as part of my Path Builder series, which has a fully laid out example using the character Bane from the film The Dark Knight Rises. If you'd like to check it out, reach out to me and I'm happy to share it with you. Your mindset map is a lithe, evolving record of your cast of characters and what's in your shadow. It's lithe and evolving because this is not a static piece of work, because you're going to continue to add to it after our time together ends as you encounter more characters in your life. Now, if it wasn't a lithe, evolving piece of work, then this is where you may feel that the work you're doing is a one-off, a one-time fix-all exercise, and then you'll feel the effects fizzle out and you'll go back to your old behaviours that weren't serving you well and back to chasing shiny objects. Through the work, the key steps are going to be to identify your characters, check out their traits, what human and practical needs that they serve, what do we hate, and how do we go about serving needs in healthier ways. This is the part of the work that gives you more understanding and validation about who you are and what you're comprised of. It makes you wonder and start to dig into yourself and fuel that sense of intrigue. Because once you start building the map, you'll tend to keep going and start to answer powerful questions like, why am I like this? Or why am I stuck in this pattern? It goes beyond just having positive thinking or affirmations, and is also why no one else but you can compile it, because every mindset map is different and only you can make yours. Next, we move on to the third outcome on the bottom left. Shift away from goal-based thinking towards flexible thinking and action. So, why would we want this outcome? At the moment, we take the approach of going after the next shiny object that takes our attention and gives us a big promise, like finding a partner, getting a new car, thinking that this next thing will make us happy. Thing is, often, if we do end up achieving it, the feel-good factor from it disappears quite quickly and we end up feeling frustrated and disillusioned. We repeat the whole cycle again when we pick a new shiny object to go after, So we end up in a maze going round and round in circles and feeling confused as to where to turn next. This approach can be very tiring and leave us feeling stuck and unfulfilled. The unique perspective that I offer here is that there's one root cause no matter where you start from, and that root cause is that you don't feel good enough. Now, other coaches would call this a limiting belief, and it is. The reason I hold this cause in such prominence is that it reaches into just about every facet of our lives. So to begin the shift, we want to understand our goals further and uncover why we want something rather than just be taken in by the shininess. And for this, for example, we utilize the technique and action of doing versus being. So doing is, as the name implies, is what you do. It's the actions that you take. Being is who you are, and it's underneath all the doing. So for example, if you take a small goal of somebody saying, I want to be less stressed and more relaxed. And the common solutions to that are to meditate, do yoga, or journal, like all the hacks or tips that you come across. So this may yield short-term benefits, but ultimately you may get to a sense of feeling like you should be doing something more to make these benefits last, especially as they begin to run out after a short time. You see, when we set out to make changes in our lives, we usually attempt it at the doing level. So we try to do new things or try to do things differently, but in most cases we haven't updated the being level, and therefore we default back to old behaviors and patterns, and the change doesn't stick. And that's because below the surface, your sense of identity, in this example, is tied up with productivity. So in an inner attempt to shield your most sensitive self from the world and yourself, you've created a shell that's all about action, struggling, and moving all the time. So you feel like you have to prove yourself to the world in every situation you face. But deep down, you're afraid that if you stop to take a breath, you're resentful for the fact that you might have some guilt about not working hard. So to avoid that guilt, you struggle forward like your life depends on it. In other words, the doing problem is feeling or experiencing stress, fatigue, and burnout, and the being problem is that you've got an unconscious need to struggle. So what can we do to uncover the being solution? Amongst other things, it starts by being kind to ourselves. Now, what does that mean? Well, we reconnect with our core values and ask ourselves questions like, what is important to you and what are we about? It comes from feeling okay with who we are right now, and also to be okay not knowing what's going to happen in the future. And that while we're transforming with this work, it's to be okay with not moving rapidly or instantly and taking the time to make those changes stick. And also to be okay but not just struggling ahead if we're not getting something comfortably practiced or doesn't seem to resonate. We're okay with not just staying stuck. Now, all of this requires patience, it requires diligence, and to be honest, it's all simple, but not easy. Now, this is where the work with me comes in. At the moment, we're caught up in these symptoms and go about addressing these directly, and hence experience feelings like frustration and disillusionment at not being able to change, or indeed achieving a goal and finding it doesn't actually make us happy or fulfilled, as well as confusion about what to do next. And see, what we don't do is something we've not really been taught to, and that is to dig beyond the symptom and see what it's actually getting at. So this will give you more clarity than you'll believe. You'll be more appreciative of the answers that you find and have, and it will spark new light bulb moments for you as you uncover the true reasons about the natural feelings and emotions that you're experiencing. It opens up to more self-compassion, which comes from being kind to yourself and making decisions that are thought out rather than being distracted by quick fixes. And lastly, we come to the fourth outcome on the bottom right, which is higher self-worth via less reliance on others. So having previously established that there's one root cause of not feeling good enough, we build on this idea by giving ourselves back control instead of playing the victim or blaming others. Now, why do we want this? Honestly, it's difficult to put into words, because only you can judge what higher self-worth will do for you. Now, it could be that you don't look for other people's approval, like people-pleasing, suppressing emotions, prolonging unhelpful situations, and instead give yourself more acceptance on what you naturally feel. So like we said before, if that all means that you still want to go after goals, then that's okay. You know, if you want to still be a millionaire, develop muscles, find a life partner, all good. Only this time, you won't go after these goals just for the sake of going after them. You'll be coming from a place of higher self-worth, which means you allow yourself to both make mistakes and to change your mind along the way. And even if it's not goals that we're talking about, what is possible are things like being more confident in your abilities at work, being more content and satisfied in the relationship with your partner, and a healthier relationship with your family. The possibilities are exciting and life-affirming through this work. So how do we get there? We employ Emotions 101, where we go from a starting point of your choice. So, you know, it could be changing your career, wondering where your romantic relationship is at, concerned about lack of money, whatever you'd like. Emotions 101 is where we go back to basics and look at our current behaviors, thoughts and patterns and see where they have come from. In other words, why do we seem stuck in the same patterns and loops that lead to feelings of anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, bouts of anger, and us developing addictions? This involves actions like challenging our definitions of trauma and emotions, as well as revisiting the stories we tell ourselves and asking what actually happened and learning about the symbiosis between our conscious and unconscious minds. So as a brief example, take the starting point of someone saying, I'm always snapping or getting angry at the smallest thing, which gets me into fights and arguments with people around me and leaves me feeling aggrieved or on edge, and other people either annoyed with me or I have breakdowns in communication and relationships. Now what's happening here is that we could be utilizing anger in one of two ways. One, via overt and covert rage, where overt rage is the examples of rage that I guess we're all familiar with, like the Hulk, like you burst out, you shout out loud, you might be physically intimidating, you might go red in the face, you might scream, etc. And there's also covert rage, which are things like passive-aggressive silences, silent contracts, sarcasm, and cold body language. Or we might use anger as a heating element to heat up a cold emotion. Now, we utilize anger in these two potential ways because we don't feel good enough to process the emotion behind the anger. So, what can we do? We look beyond the anger and address how we feel about the emotion that anger is heating up. Like, for example, what do we feel about sadness or being hurt or grief? Now, the step towards resolution here is to accept, feel, and express our emotions healthily as they arise. So a very practical way to do that, for example, is to say whatever we want to out loud at the time. Now, again, like we said before, it's a fine balance. So we're not saying just always say everything out loud, but it's to express them healthily as and when they appear rather than storing them away into our shadow. The point is, our emotions are perfectly normal and healthy, and that goes for all of them. What we hence do is revisit our upbringing to find out where we discerned that emotions like anger are negative, and replace that line of thinking with a new one where we accept and embrace those emotions as a part of us. So as we continue to experience these emotions in the world around us, we can process the emotions for what they ultimately are, and that's something that passes in a minute and a half through our system and therefore makes us feel like we're good enough. And when we feel good enough, that acts as the catalyst to repair and solve other areas of your life that have previously weighed you down. So Emotions 101 lets us therefore feel things like relief, clarity, validation, and understanding as we start to give ourselves the message that the emotions we naturally feel are completely fine, and that goes for all of them, and that there's also another way than just suppressing the negativity and thinking we're a lioness or a goddess or a warrior, or just to be told we've got this. The new sense of higher self-worth will provide you with a sense of renewal about yourself, coupled with curiosity and flexibility, whether that's starting a new project that you've always wanted to, setting and going about achieving a new goal, or simply improving your current situation by addressing yourself. It doesn't end here. Alongside these outcomes and actions are 4 main overarching statements or guiders that you see in the 4 corners of the map. They're there to emphasize that while the outcomes and actions comprise the bulk of the work, the 4 guiders complement them and add to the point that this work isn't an overnight, instant, one-time fix. With the work comes new ideas, techniques, principles and behaviors that require practice and making mistakes, which is okay. We're not meant to nail this or smash this on the first go. It's like with learning anything new. When you first begin, you don't nail it straight away, be it playing an instrument, a sport, a video game, whatever it might be. You try it a few times, your old behaviors may kick in, but as you practice further, you become more proficient at it. Now, whilst this is going on, it's tempting to sack it in and say, this doesn't work. And to be honest, if it does get difficult and we don't want to go further with the work, we can stay kind to ourselves and stop. And decide that if we do want to go further, we can take a break before doing so. This is where staying kind to ourselves and staying patient pays off. Currently, we default to having a go at ourselves for any mistake or misdemeanor which depletes our self-worth. When we instead stay kind to ourselves, we break self-hate cycles that we perpetuate with unkind thoughts about what we do and say. The patience combines with the practice, and this will lead you to the changes that stick. Now, with the practice, patience, and staying kind to yourself comes the questions. At every point where your subconscious wants to play out old behaviors, limiting beliefs, and doubts, we can take a moment to ask the questions we learned in the process. Things like, which character is on the mic? What needs are they trying to fulfill? How else can I fulfill the needs? What do I want? How can I define and defend my boundaries? The more you keep asking, the more the work makes sense and your subconscious buys into the changes that you're trying to make. We keep asking these questions because in truth, we've actually got the answers already. They're not sitting out there waiting for us, they're actually waiting for us inside. They are in parts of us that we may not know or have visited for years, but they are there. You see, quite often we look to external sources to give us the answers to what we're looking for, and indeed the nature of today's instant gratification culture, shiny objects become that more alluring. This work is the alternative. Will it fix everything in one go or work for everyone? Nope. Otherwise, a lot more people would be undertaking it. At the same time, it creates lasting, life-changing momentum should you want it to. I myself am live proof of that, having gone through this process with my coach and seen other people experience the same. It's now your turn. If you want to start building your mindset map, then drop a message on this video and we can start the conversation. Till the next time, feel supersonic.